day. That's really why we're doing this today. I just wanted to go outside for a while.
Yeah, you just wanted to
Right. Really, I'm testing to see like how well the SPF in my moisturizer works. That's what it is.
That's it. Until the goes out well. Now I have to ask what SPF
I think it's 35.
Only 35.
It's like regular. I know. It probably should be stronger. This is what like the La Roche-Posay people sell.
You know,
All right, are you guys ready? Yes? Yes? You can all hear me?
Yep.
Perfect, great. Well, thank you all for coming out today. I'm Alex Marion. I am the Syracuse City Auditor, and we're here talking about my 5-point plan of how the City of Syracuse can improve its licensing program to prevent another incident and other incidents like have been happening here at the Westcott Theater recently. So let's just review some of the facts for a moment, if you will, including the fact that the City of Syracuse issued violations here at the Westcott Theater on July 1st, 2024 for failing to obtain an entertainment license. However, the city still went ahead and issued a certificate of use, which is a broader business license, later that year in October. Now, the City of Syracuse did the right thing by shutting events down here. I think that's a good choice, that's the right decision, but we shouldn't have to get to this place. And having a stronger, more thoughtful paradigm for issuing licenses at businesses across the City of Syracuse is how we do that. Now, last year, I completed the most comprehensive audit of licensing the City of Syracuse has ever had, that has ever come out of my office. And we're really proud of that work. And we are pushing for more improvements to the city's licensing process. We've already seen some of those happen. We've seen additional signage, updated forms. So I think the city is committed to making some improvements, but we can and must do better still. So we have a plan here that includes our 5 points here are focusing on safety first, proactive policy making, increasing licensing revenue to invest in capacity, a review and overhaul of regulations, increasing transparency. So let's go over those a little bit, shall we? So business licensing is about making sure that we have safety for customers, employees, and our communities. Preventing businesses that have open code violations, delinquent payments, or problematic histories from obtaining certificates of use to open is critical. We need to make sure that the City of Syracuse is not awarding certificates of use to businesses that are not in compliance with other rules or up to date on where they need to be. Second, we should be more proactive. We should be automatically sending every business an application to renew its licenses. And when people file to open new businesses through the county clerk's office or state agencies, we should be getting that information so that we in the City of Syracuse can be proactively reaching out to them to say, you're starting a bar, you're starting a restaurant, you're starting some kind of store. Let's make sure you have all the licenses you need so you can get up and running the right way the first time. Once a business is open and we have to do enforcement down the road, that's when things can get messy, that's when problems can occur, like we've seen here at the Westcott Theater. How do we increase licensing revenue? That proactivity will get us there. What my audit found is that since 2016, we saw licensing revenue decline 80%, from a 6-figure number down to less than $40,000. This year, thankfully, I think I take some credit resulting from that audit. We have seen a small increase, about a 10% increase in licensing revenue in this year's fiscal year. But we can do better, and we must do better. And we need to be taking that revenue and investing it in making in expanding the capacity we have in our licensing operation. We need to importantly overhaul our licensing regulations, and this is probably the toughest point here. The City of Syracuse issues licenses for over 75 different activities and establishments. We have a vague and sometimes confusing system of fee payments for many of those licenses. So, for example, entertainment licenses, the kind the Westcott Theater failed to obtain, have different categories, and many of those categories have different fees. We need a solid, thoughtful fee structure so that when businesses are seeking to obtain their licenses, we are able to give them the licenses they need. They're paying a reasonable fee that recoups the work city staff have to do to issue those licenses and perform inspections, and that it's clear and understandable from beginning to end of process. We also need to be creating a new general business license. The certificate of use functions largely as that now, but I think it should be broader. Any business that exists in the city of Syracuse should be open and operating under the same type of license. And what we also need to do is look at different businesses, emerging businesses that are opening up, different kinds of activities that happen across the city of Syracuse to determine if we need licensing along the way at those different facilities and those different events. And we also need to improve transparency. Now, many of you have heard me talk about transparency a lot in this job, and especially lately in city government. We can always do a solid and a better job of being transparent, but let's be out there and let's be abundantly clear. The city has a great open data portal. It's a fantastic tool to use. We should be out there publishing our current licensees on there. When you get your license, we should be publishing that with its expiration date every month out on the city's open data portal. We should also be publishing clearly a list of businesses that have been issued code violations when they violate those licenses. And it should be pretty user-friendly, so you can look up the name of the business, the address of the business, and understand who is receiving those code violations. We also should be requiring businesses to disclose the name, not just of their ownership entity, which often is an LLC, but all of the beneficial members of that LLC. Any silent partner, any investor that will profit off of that. And when we require them to disclose that, we need to make sure that those individuals are fully compliant with the city of Syracuse as well. We need to make sure that those people who are going to profit off of a business that we are licensing are up to date on code violations, don't owe the city back taxes, back water. And that's how we're going to get the revenue that the city is entitled to in the door and ensure that we have safe, well-operating businesses across the city of Syracuse. I also would encourage my colleagues on the Common Council. We need to hold our administration accountable. And again, I think they did great work this week. This happened as it should, but we should not have gotten to this point. But we are supposed to be seeing an annual report, a quarterly report from the Department of Finance on entertainment licenses. We're supposed to be seeing an annual report from the Department of Finance on all licensing activity. We are supposed to be seeing an annual report from the Division of Code Enforcement on certificates of use and other licenses that have been revoked due to mismanagement. I do not believe that those have been provided. I have not seen those myself, and I would urge my colleagues on the Common Council to demand those from city departments, as well as hold regular public hearings to go over that information and ask questions about what businesses are operating and how in the business corridors throughout the city of Syracuse. Now look, we know that small businesses are the beating heart of the city of Syracuse. We need to make sure that our small businesses can grow and thrive, and we are not regulating people out of our borders. But we need to make sure that our businesses are operating safely and that our businesses are thriving when they do. It is unfair to the neighbors in this area. It is unfair to the other businesses in this neighborhood and across the city of Syracuse for bad actors like the Westcott Theater to be operating in the way they have been. And through this 5-point plan that I'm putting out today, we can have a stronger, more thoughtful response to making sure we have the right licensing regulations in place, and we are doing it the right way to ensure everyone can have growing, thriving businesses here in our community. All right, with that was a lot of words just now. With that, I can take questions and I can go left to right if that's easier.
Alex, why do you think this was not addressed for so long? You talked about, that is important to what small kids, why is it so long?
So I can't speak to why, in this particular case, code enforcement took the actions they did when they did, but I think what we have found is that there is often a delay between when violations are issued, when corrective actions are happening. We need to have better coordination to make sure that if we are issuing violations for important things like failure to obtain your entertainment licenses, we are not then rewarding businesses by giving them their certificate of use or other types of permissions along the way. So I think it's really important to have a coordinated, proactive system to review license applications. We are making sure we're not just letting folks check boxes, but instead we are ensuring that they're actively compliant with everything that they need to be doing here in the city of Syracuse.
And do you think that the incidents that happened last week sparked, codes really dialing down on this?
In this case, yes, but it should never have gotten to that situation. If we had a more thoughtful, proactive strategy when it comes to license enforcement, we would not have that level incidents like this happening. And what I think is more important, even more important, is ensuring that we have what I think is even more important is ensuring that we are preventing problems from happening before they happen, and we have to go in with this larger scale city intervention. Because look, let's be very clear. Once you start calling in the police department, fire department, code enforcement all along the way to shut a business down, that is a very resource intensive process. If we are more thoughtful and more proactive in our licensing enforcement, our license issuance, we are going to prevent those things from happening, be able to redirect those resources elsewhere. Yeah.
Oh, sorry, just real quick, it would seem like for certain businesses, I know for the Westcott, for places like this, each time that they hold an event, they have to fill out the permit application. It takes 2 weeks before the event. They have to go through the whole thing. But it seems like some businesses don't have to fill out that permit, like certain bars or certain places like that. Are you able to walk through just how that works?
So different permits and different licenses have a different sequence of when you have to apply for them. So if you're a venue that needs an entertainment license for specific shows, there's kind of one set of rules you have to follow. I think this speaks largely to the point of we need to have a more thoughtful paradigm of how we do licensing. I think that the time has come, and our audit has showed that we need to be overhauling some of these regulations to make it a more streamlined process, so you don't have to try to figure out, well, am I defined as this? Is this event defined as that? Because some of it's not even well spelled out in statutes, or was spelled out in a way that doesn't neatly fit in today's world because it was written 40, 50, 70 years ago. I think what we can do is, and I think the time is right for the city to really look at overhauling some of these regulations and having a better, more thoughtful licensing paradigm overall.
Because the reason why I'm asking is because code said that they just started to enforce this requirement where for each event you have to get the permit just in the last year. They've started to enforce that, and we looked at who's been tagged with violations, and like Coleman's got tagged with the violation. There's all sorts of different places in there, but it seemed kind of like random. Why, like some bars might have a problem, but there might be some that don't. Now the theater has a problem. I mean, they had a problem even last summer. Now we're back here again. Just like who this even applies to.
I mean, I can't speak to why codes does enforcement in some places and not others. They should be doing enforcement consistently and across the board. And I think that we are seeing what happens when you have an outdated paradigm of licensing, when you have rules that are inconsistent and you're not being proactive. I think it would make much more sense for code enforcement or someone else in the city of Syracuse to be reaching out to, we know who has liquor licenses in the city of Syracuse. We can send everyone a letter explaining here are the rules you have to follow if you're doing this. Here are the rules you have to follow if you're doing that. Here's the rules you have to follow if you're doing something else. We know We know who has DBAs and other licenses to operate businesses across the city in many different capacities. We can be doing more to proactively reach out. And this is one of the important points of this plan. We need to have a proactive policy of reaching out to these businesses so that enforcement isn't haphazard, so that we're not waiting for there to be something terrible and, God forbid, something tragic happening at a place to do this work. This should be something that is done proactively and done consistently to ensure that everyone has the right amount of permissions to operate their business correctly.
Is there a concern that the upcoming fiscal year budget could impact some of the things you're calling for here? The more consistent, thoughtful approaches to licensing, permitting, and enforcement?
Well, absolutely, and that's one of the reasons I thought some of the cuts to code enforcement were so short-sighted. I think that even when departments were getting the revenue they asked for, getting the resources they asked for, they weren't doing a good job of being proactive. And taking resources away further stretches thin the city's ability to do proactive work, proactive enforcement. I think it is critical to look at new sources of revenue. One of which that could be done very easily is licensing revenue. Since 2016, we've seen an 80% drop in licensing revenue coming into the city of Syracuse. That's unacceptable. That means we have just not done a good job issuing licenses, being proactive, following up with people who have previously been awarded licenses. We can do better. It's time we do better. And that, I believe, easily, with just some basic steps, could be turned back into a six-figure revenue stream, and that should be invested in building capacity to do good code enforcement work and ordinance enforcement work.
So are you saying that if this system was put in place with what happened last year when the city first flagged the problem, this could have been avoided? This is something
Yes.
that's been sitting on code enforcement's desk for the better part of a year?
I don't think that we should be in the business of giving certificates of use to businesses that have a history of not getting the appropriate licenses, and certainly we should not be giving in the business of giving certificates of use or other licenses or permissions to any entity that has open code violations. We should not be in the business of giving permissions and permits to businesses that have a history of tax debts or delinquencies in their tax bills or their water bills. And I think that it is crucial that we do a better, more proactive job of getting people in compliance and getting them in compliance faster. This place was cited last July for not having an entertainment license. I don't know why that did not seem to get corrected in a timely fashion, and then later on that would go on to get wind up giving them a certificate of use to continue operating. We should not be giving anyone a certificate of use unless they have a clean bill of health, an A+ grade from the city of Syracuse, because I think it's unfair to the patrons and the neighbors and the employees of places like this if they cannot guarantee that they are coming to work or to shows or being in the neighborhood of a safe, thoughtful, well-regulated entity.
Given the extra ask that you're looking for with the sort of guardrails on the business-related licenses, is that something that's feasible, given that you yourself have been at a different podium, a different press conference, talking about the housing registry and the lack of compliance there?
Absolutely. I think this is not an either or, it's a both and. We need to ensure that we are getting all of our properties, whether they are residential or commercial, into compliance with the rules that they need to be following. I think we should be doing a much better job with the rental registry. Look, when I put my report out earlier this year on the rental registry, I will generously say a third of eligible properties are on the rental registry. It's probably more like a quarter. Rental properties, to be abundantly clear, are businesses. They are businesses by another name. They need to be well regulated. We need to ensure that rental properties are safe for the people living in them. And if landlords cannot be bothered to, bring in inspectors from the city of Syracuse to ensure everyone has a safe, quality place to live, that is not a business model we should be condoning, and we should be living up to our standards with the rental registry and getting everyone into compliance on that one. Yes? Yes, Sam. By the way, this is Sam who's involved with the Westcott Neighborhood Association.
Westcott Neighborhood Association. So, Alex, I'm glad you're here. I actually agree with about 99% of what you're saying. I also agree that code enforcement of all sorts has been lax throughout the city for as long as I've lived here, which is 32 years. And we have seen an improvement with each of the last 3 administrations. We've seen a little bit better code enforcement, maybe more resources, but still inadequate, particularly in the realm of housing, which we have talked about before, but in other spheres. And we want to continue to see that a robust enforcement. I do want to say in regard, and I have no skin in the game with the Westcott Theater, and I'm not in the halls of power at City Hall. I do want to say with the Westcott Theater, when it opened, I think it was 2008, there were a lot of problems, and with big trucks parked, with parking, with crowds, with noise, and basically these were resolved through a discussion process and a learning curve of the owners as they adjusted. And for the most part, in the community, even though I would say most of the people who attend, and I'm just guessing here, are not immediate neighbors of the theater itself has been a good neighbor in recent years. It is certainly an important economic engine on the street because students don't come here very much anymore because the university has taken over much of that economic activity. So the restaurants, the stores, they need people to come. That said, the game changed recently. Maybe it was a year ago, but I think it was in March when they began having these late parties, private parties, which are distinctly different from the types of concerts that we've all been used to, which ended by midnight, the streets were cleared out, everything was cool. These are seem to be unregulated, and it's these events that have spilled over late at night up to 2 in the morning, and that has, as you said, spurred the operation. So I think I don't want to make this a witch hunt against the Westcott Theater in any way, and I'm not implying that you are. I think it is a good occasion, though, as you are doing, Alex, to raise all of these other issues, because so often, and you have shown the spotlight on a number of issues that are important, but they don't get the attention they need in the city. They're pushed to a back burner if they're on the stove at all, and permitting is an important one. I looked at the permits pages on the website before coming over here this morning, and there are so many different types of permits for so many types of groups. I actually started to shake a little bit saying, oh my God, are the churches, are the PTSOs, are the Little League, who needs what kind of permit for what? So clarification is definitely needed, and this is not a thing that costs a lot and might actually increase revenue. It just needs the attention that you're going to bring. So I guess if I had one question, it was simplification. How do you bring those 75 categories down but still serve all the goals that you want?
Well, this is why I love coming over here, because Sam is one of my favorite Westcott neighbors. I like to say, I did. I want to make sure you were here for this.
I always try, but if a local official comes to Westcott Street, I try to be here.
So, to his point, I think that this is a really important moment to reflect on this, because this is why we need to have a comprehensive overhaul of the city's licensing. We need to make sure that we have licenses available that make sense for what we need. We have licenses available for the businesses and activities that are happening in our community, and that we are doing the proper proactive outreach as well as enforcement to get this done. And I think this is an important time for the city to take a step back and say, wait, what are we doing? How do we do this better? And I am hoping that the audit my office released can be a good first step in leading that conversation. Anyone else?
I think to his point, the top of your press release used the word notorious. Are there other issues with Westcott that have been persistent?
Look, I think this is something I hear from neighbors like Sam and like a lot of people who live around here, that the parties here have gotten quite out of control. And it is and I do not want to be the guy who comes around to kill everyone's good time. I really don't. I promise I'm fun. Somewhere down deep. And I do think we just need to make sure that everyone is being a good neighbor, and the best way to ensure everyone is being a good neighbor here in the city of Syracuse is to have some reasonable rules and regulations that businesses can follow, businesses can understand, that our business community can go, kind of keep up with in a way that makes sense for everyone to comply with.
The videos made this notorious, if I may say.
But Sam, come up.
Okay,
Yeah.
well, I
Yeah.
would just say, the videos made this notorious. If the videos hadn't been out there, I don't even know if the city would have acted. We often have problems which may seem insignificant compared to problems in other parts of the city, but they're very real. But the city has to measure its response, and if there isn't the kind of evidence that we're seeing in the videos, I'm just not sure that response would be so strong. So that's what makes it notorious. But as I said, generally, crowds have been always well behaved and managed as they wait for a concert, as they come out. It's these late night 12 to 2 types of activities that spill over up to Harvard, where there were gunshots, things like that changes the game. We are concerned. I know I'm concerned as a resident, but I know my friends in the business district are concerned too, because, and here we will be specific about these events, not general policies, because Westcott is doing generally pretty well right now compared to different times over the last decades. We have almost 100% occupancy of the retail establishments, but the margins for these small business owners are very small. So a dip in business can affect their survival. The violence, the vandalism that was done against stores here last year and still continues occasionally, you might say, it's only going to cost them $3,000-$4,000 to replace that door. Well, that's a lot of money when you're running a small diner or a small business, and you can't do it again and again, and you don't want to go to your insurance because it's going to raise your rates forever. So the margins are small, so the issue is important. And when videos like the ones we saw go online, and then when the media, like you, cover this, suddenly people out in DeWitt, people in Clay, people in Solway, they're not going to come saying, let's go have dinner on Westcott Street. Let's walk around the beautiful Westcott neighborhood. Let's go to the theater. They're going to say, it's dangerous there. It's chaotic. I remember when in the 1990s, the epithets that were thrown at our street as when the Big M closed, and things were looking really ratty on Westcott Street, and how hard it was. It took 10 years, 20 years to rebuild the commercial base here. So a little thing like a couple videos that seem to look like a riot can totally upset the balance, this delicate balance that has been built for so long. So I implore you all, that's not the way Westcott Street really is. Westcott Street is great, and the hours that most people are out, from 6 a.m. to midnight, it's very safe. The stores are great, the restaurants are great, the bars are great, people are well behaved. But we have to be careful that we don't slide down this slope into a situation that we can't climb out of. So action by the city, prompt action of the city is good. I expect the owner of the theater to be negotiating compliance. I think it makes business sense for everybody, and that's our hope. So I always talk too long. I even talk more than Alex probably, and that's
That's a
and
hard
that's
one
a
to get
fee.
to
Yeah,
sometimes.
yeah. All right, so
If you
thank
don't
you.
mind, while you're still up there,
Oh,
actually,
yeah.
would you mind just saying and spelling your first and last name for us?
My name is Sam Gruber, Gruber, and I'm co-president of the Westcott Neighborhood Association. I do want to give you some good news. Working with the city, I think by the end of this month, we're going to have new lighting in the trees to make it more decorative here, and this will be lighting that can be adjusted in the holiday season, because if you were here last winter, things were looking pretty drab. We used to have lights, we used to have banners, we used to have decorations, And somewhere in the last decade, these all sort of vanished. So working with the Department of, with Susie McPherson at the Department of Neighborhood and Business Investment, or I forget what it's called, but, and working with some of the owners here, the retailers, Doug at the barber shop, Eva at Mom's Diner. You know, we're going to have some good news here too. It's not all about crime. The press likes to report when it's crime, but great things happen all the time. We're going to have our third year of poetry reading starting later this month at Mom's Diner. We have Strings in the Garden at the Rose Garden on the 14th. We have the Westcott Art Trail coming up. Every week there's things going here. It's not really about crime. I grew up in Philadelphia in the 60s and 70s. I lived in New York in the 70s and 80s. I lived in Italy, you know, during the period of the Red Brigades. I've seen crime. This is bad. We don't want it. And it hurts a lot of people, but it's nothing to lose faith in the street about. You know, we've got a good place here and we want to keep it great. Thanks.
And I always appreciate when Sam can help sell everyone on some of the great things that are happening in the Westcott neighborhood. I encourage you to sign up for their email list because there are a lot of good things happening thanks to the Sam and the wonderful people of the Westcott Neighborhood Association. To his point, this is a great neighborhood. This is a successful, thriving neighborhood, and we just want to keep it that way. And some basic changes in how the city of Syracuse does its regulations can ensure that that happens. So, unless anyone has anything else. Going once, going twice. All right, thank you all very much.
Tonight, Thornton Park Association has its annual meeting, 5:37. The Parks Commissioner will be there talking about all the, what we're going to be grilling her about, not grilling her literally, but cookout grilling. We're going to be grilling her though about what's going on with the Westminster steps, what's going on with the